Susan, Roger Delgado's Master, the Daleks, and the Eighth Doctor? This book is a fan's dream, right? Legacy of the Daleks has a great premise, but in my opinion has some awful pacing issues. It reunites the Doctor with Susan, brings back Roger Delgado's portrayal of the Master, and has some intriguing twists and turns along the way. Legacy of the Daleks spends a lot of time setting up the world and giving life to characters, which it does really well. However, due to it only being a 245-page novel, this means a lot of the plot is condensed into the second half of the book, making it a struggle to read at times. I think this is the main issue I had with the book, and it's the reason why I struggled to get done reading it, which needn't be said is not great for a book. That being said, however, when events do happen in the second half, it really makes an impact, so if you're looking at reading this book, I'd advise you stick with it and try to get to the second half if you can. Some scenes genuinely excited me, and so it's definitely worth sticking to it if you're reading these books as a series, or if you simply like the Daleks. So, John Peel is the author of this one, and is the writer of War of the Daleks and a couple of other books here and there. I gave a decent summary on John Peel with my review of War of the Daleks already, so feel free to check that out. Also, seeing as War of the Daleks is Legacy's sister novel, it's kinda good to watch. Legacy of the Daleks was written after Terry Nation sadly passed away, meaning Peel wasn't so restricted by what Nation requested, meaning Legacy was a lot more of Peel's work than his previous books. Funnily enough, Legacy of the Daleks actually came from a fan piece that Peel shelved a while ago, which is why he had Susan and Roger Delgado's Master in. No, it wasn't actually originally going to be a Third Doctor book, but it also wasn't originally an Eighth Doctor story either. The original work was with Susan fighting the Master, which I think is a really cool idea in itself, and to have them both mixed in with the Eighth Doctor I think is really nice. So the story takes place after the events of the Dalek invasion of Earth in a war-torn England. Most of the book shows the struggles of living after Dalek occupation, with traps and Dalek weapons littered throughout the countryside, and locals adapting to this. The country is split into different domains, with various corrupt and awful people running them. Two of these domains are at war, and a lot of the book sets up this war between the two factions. Meanwhile, the Doctor is in search of Sam, after losing her in the previous book, so decides that Earth is a good place to start looking for her. After landing and getting caught up in the struggle between the two domains, the Doctor learns that his granddaughter Susan is trapped in a Dalek artifact, looking for answers as to why this relic has suddenly caught the attention of one of the domain leaders. It turns out that the Master is in fact infiltrated one of the domains in order to cipher power into one of these relics to discover a Dalek artifact which will help him rule over countless galaxies. However, in doing so, the Master awakens the sleeping Daleks, who start manufacturing more of their own race. The Doctor and a band of his friends must team up to stop the Master and the Daleks, whilst also saving Susan from the depths of the awakening Dalek base. To properly appreciate Legacy of the Daleks, I'd go ahead and watch the Dalek Invasion of Earth, as this book heavily relies on the reader to be familiar with this. I'd also recommend being familiar with Jon Pertwee's run, and potentially you might need to watch The Deadly Assassin too. Firstly, the characters in this book feel really nicely fleshed out, with each person delivering a role to play which benefits the larger plot. Susan and David, the man Susan leaves the TARDIS for, have a lot of marriage tension due to Susan not being able to have children with David, and the fact that she's unable to age whilst he gets older. It's nice to see that not everything is plain sailing with the two, as it's well established that this is a common problem for the Doctor when he has a companion in other stories. I do feel though that Peel sexualises Susan at the start of the book completely unnecessarily, which felt a bit jarring and creepy, leaving me thinking it took away from the character. He wouldn't want to be cheered up after spending an evening getting thoroughly depressed, but she could do it. Put on a revealing outfit, play up to one of his fantasies, and then bed him before he had the time to remember he was supposed to be furious with her and not aroused by what she was doing. That would work. It'd exhaust him and stave off another argument for at least a few days. This made for uncomfortable reading in my opinion, and instead of making it seem as though Susan had grown up, which is what I hope it was, it read like an odd Reddit fanfiction from the depths of Doctor Who forums. The Doctor was written okay, it seemed mostly like the 8th Doctor, with a few lines here and there that didn't quite fit in, but overall he was written well. The rest of the characters were great, however, and I feel were fleshed out well, with backstories and plot points revealing themselves gradually, making them believable and complex people. I like how the Doctor decides to start his search on Earth after losing Sam, as it actually made sense and didn't feel jarring, as it links nicely with the overarching plot. Like I mentioned earlier in the review, I feel the first half of the book was crammed with padding, involving characters I didn't really care about and the war between the two factions which simply felt uninteresting and dull. There's honestly not a lot else I can say on the first half, which is such a shame. The second half, however, does prove to be a better read, with me struggling to put down the book as I wanted to find out what happens next. Legacy of the Daleks teases the return of the Daleks for such a long time, making it so exciting and scary when they're inevitably reawakened in their old base. Another thing I liked is how we get an explanation as to how the Master ended up as the burned wreck we see in Deadly Assassin. It was tastefully done, and I feel it was a great way of bridging a previously unknown gap in Doctor Who history. That's obviously if you don't count the account given in the Two Masters. Have a listen to this scene with Susan bringing down the Master. There was neither pity nor mercy left in her. She triggered the device, knowing she was killing the Master too, and discovered that she was glad of it. If any being deserved death, it was him. The energies of the TCE ravaged through the transmuter and onto the Master's body. There was no respite for him now, no way to regenerate from such a death. The transmuter exploded, energies flaring forth. Susan staggered back, shielding her eyes, and she re-entered the Master's TARDIS. She closed the door swiftly and hurried to the console. Then she switched the screen and could see the energy licking futilely in the shell of the TARDIS. It was over. The transmuter was destroyed, the Master dead. These scenes made for really great reading, and as a long-term fan of the show, the second half of the book caters really nicely to me. It just goes to show that you shouldn't be trifling with Susan. Overall, Legacy of the Daleks is written well. The unfortunate pacing issues really dropped my rating as I struggled so much with the first half of this one. However, I think it kind of makes up for it in the second half. It's not overly friendly to new fans of the show, however I think it's a good thing as it plays off a lot of Doctor Who lore without actually adding too much or making it overbearing. I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10. Disappointing start with a great conclusion. Okay, so that's the end of today's review. I do hope you enjoyed the video. Really sorry about the recording of the second quote in the book. I just couldn't get it right. I just could not get anything out of my mouth onto this recording, so I just threw my best one on there. So I do apologise. Again, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you haven't subscribed already and you like this kind of content, just subscribe, or let me down in the comments below what you think I could be doing better, or what other books or TV shows or whatever I could be reviewing. That being said, I hope you all have a fantastic day today, and all the best.